All right, folks, we should be live. So this is the weekly live stream. We didn't have one last week because I was working on that bag back there for the Urban EDC Backpack version 4.0, but we are live now for another live stream. This one should be a blast. Let me know if you could hear me in the chat room. This one's good. We're going to be focusing on EMPs, so electromagnetic pulses, and we're also going to be talking about a little product by a company called EMP Shield. And I've been actually installing these in various locations within our home. It kind of looks like a lightning surge protector, but these are specifically designed and used by the military and also now for consumers for protecting your home and your vehicles and other things from EMPs. So we're going to learn all about EMPs. We're going to learn about how this little thing works, and then we're going to do some other just general Q&A. So let me just kind of see. It looks like Alpha Prepping says it sounds great. We have Cascadian Preparedness. Good morning. Welcome, everyone. It's good to see everyone in the chat room. Sorry again that we weren't able to do last week. We also have the Apex Prepper and Austin Chambers. They're going to be live on the broadcast a little bit later once we bring in Andrew. Let's see. Just waiting for Andrew to come back on. It looks like he's muted right now. So I'll say hi to some people. Okay, I see him now. So MacGyver Librarian. I'm a big fan of your show, MacGyver, and huge. One of the best preppers out there is MacGyver and Batman. Those are my two votes. So, all right. So without further ado, let's get right down into it. We're going to bring in Andrew from the company EMP Shield, and we're going to talk all about EMPs for the next hour. So let's get started. So welcome, Andrew, to the live stream.
Howdy.
How's it going? Yeah, thanks again for being willing to talk to everyone live here and taking all the questions from people. Hair looks great. The background looks great. We're ready to go. So, I've been obsessively watching all your videos for the past couple of weeks now because I know you're going to be coming on here. So I'm ready to go with all sorts of notes on EMPs and all the details. So I'm not sure how we wanted to get started with it. If we wanted to start more about your background or just talk about EMPs in general or the EMP Shield.
I'll be happy to explain who I am. So I'm Andrew from EMP Shield. I am an owner of the company. I also serve as Director of Marketing and Sales. A little bit about me. I did 15 years in the military, 10 years specifically in psychological operations. It's a realm within special operations in the Army. And after that, I went to the dark side. I commissioned as a medical service corps officer. I did that for about 5 years and then got out to come help start this company. I'm not the only owner. There's several large owners. I am one of the larger owners of the company. And little quick story about how that began is I got a phone call from a friend who's working with Timothy Carty. He is the founder and inventor of EMP Shield. And my friend said, "Hey, Andrew, we've got this new technology that will protect the entire house," because back then it was just one product, from an EMP. And my initial response was, of course, no, you don't. There's no such thing, which is pretty much everybody's response. And he's like, "No, man, you don't understand. I just got out of a meeting with the military with the EMP Shield. You need to get your butt over here and help us start the company." And I was like, "Okay, tell me more." So from there, I was sold on it. I went to some of the testing. I've been in the meetings with the DOE, very large civilian and government contractor meetings. And I was sold, and here I am now almost 2 years later. And things have been going great for the company. And I really appreciate you having me on, Cliff. I have been personally watching your show for a very long time. So
very cool.
It's good to be on. And I'm excited to explain. I hope we get a lot of good questions. I'm going to try to talk a little bit about myths too, because there's some really huge misconceptions about EMP out there. So hopefully I'll dispel some of those and give people some very solid information that'll help them.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, when I first heard about you guys and when I first saw the product, I'm like, how does this work? I totally don't get it. And so I know that there's a lot of there's a lot of people are into EMPs or CMEs, and then there's some people that are, this is the prepper's boogeyman, and then there's some people that there's no way this thing could work. So hopefully in this stream we can answer all those type of questions.
I love it.
And what I really like is that, I mean, again, I've obsessively watched a lot of your videos and content already, and I'm trying to go with the skeptic mindset that there's no way this could work. And then no one seems to be able to stump you. And then you're providing a lot and science and military specs and all sorts of stuff. And for me, like data and facts kind of, they beat out,
that's right. General, and I like the hard questions. I want, hopefully people, if they're watching this, we're live, right? So I'm assuming people will be watching. If they can type in their questions, I'd love to answer live questions. And help, and a lot of people are going to be like, there's no way this is going to work. And I'd love to explain exactly how it does work and how we tested it through third-party verification through military certified channels. So
yeah. So I guess I was thinking I was going to provide my layman's terms understanding of an EMP, and then I'll let you fill in all like the technical stuff.
I'd
So
be
from my
happy to.
understanding, it's a high altitude nuclear explosion that could happen anywhere between 30 to 300 miles. So 300 miles is past the International Space Station, and there's 3 phases of it. There's the E1,
right.
E2, E3. You've mentioned how it's an explosion with gamma radiation followed by matter.
That's
and
right.
Basically, E1 is it scatters the electrons.
Yep.
Pulses them down to at the nanosecond speed, and that's what destroys all the small electronics and things like that. Followed by E2, which is more gamma burst. It's kind of like a 1-2 punch almost. It's not like the uppercut, but because it comes after that E1, that's where it causes the damage. And then the third E3 is because the explosion goes up as well. It kind of pushes almost like jello or rubber bands towards the Earth's electromagnetic field, and those come down, and those last for the tens of seconds. So we're dealing with nanoseconds, milliseconds, and then tens of thousands of seconds is my understanding of it.
So you have been watching me. That's exactly how I explain it. There's a couple things that I want to just kind of more elaborate on. So the first is we'll talk about the E3. So you're right. Cool. The E3 is basically you've got that blast that expands out on the magnetosphere. It likes to be round, and it wants to get back to that round state. So it fluctuates over time. So that could be anywhere from minutes to hours, the E3 portion. That's a low and slow, almost like you're cooking ribs on the grill. And that's an AC that's going to be at the near the ground level and primarily going to be induced into the grid because it's such a large antenna. But you're right. It's magnetosphere doing this thing like a magnet that you're waving over a piece of metal, low and slow over hours. It's devastating to the grid. And that's the primary. The E2 and the E3 are the primary phases that are going to impact the grid. Now, the E1 is in nanoseconds, like you said, and the reason being because the gamma radiation is so fast from the nuclear weapon. So that's why the E1 is in nanoseconds. The E2 is then that matter that's following the gamma radiation, and it does the exact same thing. So with the E1 and the E2, you're looking at what's called ionization, and that's that release and kickoff of freed electrons from the atmosphere, E1 and E2. E2 is in microseconds that follows the E1. Both of those are DC charges that are induced into everything. You know, the grid, your house, it's going straight through the roof into everything, your vehicle. But yeah, that's a great overview of an EMP. 3 phases, 2 of them are DC, 1 of them is AC. The first 2 are nanoseconds and microseconds. The E3 can happen for hours. Also, a lot of people don't understand this, but you can't have EMP, 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 EMP. It's not going to happen like that because you have to recharge the atmosphere. It requires those electrons to be kicked off. And so you can't have simultaneous EMPs. Now, you can if you wait a certain amount of time for the recharging process, but not immediately.
Because all of those electrons are gone from the ionosphere. Then
that's correct. That's correct.
They just can't. You have to come back then. Kind of like, okay, cool. And so, in this little device then that we have here, the EMP Shield, this is the one that goes on the circuit breaker, which we're going to be installing at our home tomorrow. This one protects against all 3 of those. So E1, E2, E3. In addition to it could. If it doesn't work for any of those, it definitely works for a lightning storm too. Then
that's right. Yes, and that's actually a very accidental benefit. Is it's 100% lightning protection. We had like 20 houses plus get hit last year with 0 damage. Lots of good testimonials online about those people, and they're always like, "I want to speak up about this." One of them was a condo, and there was actually there's an investigation because they couldn't figure out why both of them were protected, and we're like, "Well, it's because the EMP Shield's 250 linear feet, protects up to 10,000 square feet." Yeah, and so if you want, we kind of talk a little bit about the technology and how it works.
Yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my head around because we're talking nanoseconds. I can't
nanoseconds.
I can't comprehend nanoseconds, but to me, like
that's right.
Where I was thinking that some of the skeptics might be is like if we're talking nanoseconds where these electrons are coming down, wouldn't it hit my phone at the same time that it would hit the EMP Shield? Like how does that how does that work? That's the part I'm trying to get understand.
That's an amazing question, and most people don't ask it that way. So it happens simultaneously. The E1 simultaneous induction, the E2 simultaneous induction, and so the first thing is to understand that, and the E1 has a rise time of 5 nanoseconds, and there is time in there, but the first thing to understand is, like we explained, the EMP, you're dealing with freed electrons, you're dealing with electricity. So that's the first thing that dispels a lot of people. They're like, well, what about this and that? You're dealing with electricity, just like with anything else. We can deal with electricity. You just have to understand how. And so in our research, what we learned is when you're dealing with an EMP, let me back up and preface. We started with military standards because the military outlines how to protect from an EMP. That's why I don't even understand why people don't believe it, because there's already things out there that say this is how you do it.
Yeah.
What we did is we said we're going to do it 100 times better. Yeah. Literally. So we took the standards and we went way above and beyond and created the device with those standards. And so, okay, that's the preface. Now let me explain.
Okay.
When you're dealing with an EMP, like I said, electricity, it's not the induction of electrons that are destroying microelectronics, silicon arsenide that's inside of microprocessors, finite things. It's actually the heat. So what we learned is that if you can pull that electricity out of the system faster than the heat can generate, then you can deter the effects. And then the E3 is a different story, which we'll talk about here in a second. But that one was actually a little bit easier to deter, and I'll explain how in a house. Okay, so what you have is the induction simultaneously in a house. What makes the EMP Shield unique is you've got this device that's looking both directions on the line. It's looking outside the house 250 linear feet, and then it's looking inside the house 250 linear feet, which is the equivalent of about 10,000 square feet. A large home. And we, there is some people that have larger homes than that, but we made it to where it's big enough to protect the normal house up to a very, very large house. And so what it's doing is it's waiting for a rise in electricity through the induction of electrons through the structure of the house, or coming from the grid, because we're protecting against power spikes, and EMP coming in. And so when it sees the level of electricity go over voltage, so above what's called the clamping level on the device, it then activates. It's a passive device. It's literally just sitting there looking at your home's electrical system. When it sees that rise in voltage over the clamping level, it then shunts. Same as a normal. That's what a normal surge protector does. The difference is we're looking in both directions, and we're doing it faster and at a higher level. So the second that we see it, we begin shunting. We switch. It's called switching, and we shunt to ground in the house. Yeah. And we begin doing it in about 500 trillionths of a second. And the new devices that we're working on are going to be in picoseconds, because now we're also looking at new technologies that we can't talk about on here, but larger amounts of things that are happening, and we need to be able to deal with that as well. But we begin shunting fast enough to deter that heat. And so what's going to happen? And so let's talk about myths real quick. I love talking about myths because so many people don't understand. They're like, what about my computer? I mean, my computer's DC, and so let me talk about that. Cool. A lot of people don't understand this, but there is requirements from the government in your modern day laptops and in your modern day cell phones that they are to be EMI shielded, and in specific frequencies and specific things. Your cell phone and your computer, like in a movie, you're going to see it's going to shut off and it's never going to work, or it's going to be destroyed. That's actually not true. After an EMP, your cell phone, it may shut off. It's going to turn back on. Yeah, the real danger comes when you're plugging these things into your house, AKA your antenna, because your house is it's going to induce all of these electrons, a huge amount of energy that's then going to go into your phone and your computer. And so what we're doing is we're deterring that effect from happening. We're not allowing that electricity to go into your phone or into your computer or into any other device plugged in.
So if you have a phone, that'd be better if it's off, if it's not being charged at the moment, you could keep it in a Faraday bag or something. I mean, I have like one of these mission darkness ones, or the standard ones that you can make. But if you're charging it, then that's where the EMP shield is going to come into play.
That's right. That's right. If you have an EMP shield, you don't have to worry about it. And I really, and it's nothing against Mission Darkness. They seem like they offer a good product, or any other company for that matter. And I probably shouldn't even mention their name, but the reality, but the reality is that you don't really need it. I mean, it's almost, I can't believe that it's being sold because you actually don't need it unless you're looking at, I mean, it's great for other devices that don't have that EMI protection, but these do. And that's how it works. Now with the E3 is a little bit different, because what you have is you have AC coming in. Primarily the major fear or danger is coming in from the grid. And so all we do, and just like a lightning strike, is when we see over voltage for a certain amount of time at a certain level, we kick the breaker. And that basically says, boop, electricity can no longer come into the house from the grid. And then at that point, the E3 is protected via the EMP shield. Just kick the breaker.
So if you had a bunch of, so you mentioned that you don't really need it then. So if you had a bunch of phones and your small ham radios and things like that turned off, you're saying that there's a good chance that those would survive then an EMP? And
it depends. It depends on what it is, and it depends what the requirements are. I'm only specifically speaking about things like the iPhone and things like your MacBook Pro computer. You'd have to look specifically at device per device, and 95% of devices are going to get destroyed that have microelectronics inside of them. So I'm just saying specifically for your iPhone or your Samsung 97S or whatever it is, those are protected. With the EMI shield. So got it.
Yeah, and I kind of use these more for going getting off grid, so I'm not being tracked by Google and stuff. But
I understand. You've got this new what is it? The COVID tracing thing?
Yeah, I don't like that. Yeah. I see all these rapid fire questions coming in already. Yes. I don't know if we should just start taking them now, or if we should. Let's just do let's do some example questions. We talked about this one at the beginning. We were talking about the Ocean's 12 destroyed the whole casino, and with the EMP shield help against the.
It would. It doesn't matter what kind of EMP it is, and for those people who don't know, EMP can be caused by many different things. There's microwave weapons. There's directional EMP weapons. There's the nuclear high altitude electromagnetic pulse. You've got the sun. Coronal mass ejections, also known as GMDs, which the government refers to them as. So there's a myriad of different things that create an EMP type effect using different methods and platforms. So yes, now obviously, if you're looking at this is designed for nuclear EMP. However, that's why we use amperage to measure it. Is we like the whole model is 228,000 amps per phase. So that means that any EMP type event up to 228,000 amps are protected. It's not a miracle device. If you have a Carrington event, which is the last largest recorded solar flare that hit the Earth, this is not going to protect against that because that was equivalent of millions of nuclear bombs hitting the atmosphere. It would take something the size of a house probably to protect against that much electricity. But this will protect it against reasonably leveled EMP events that are non-nuclear. So
got it. Okay, cool. That was in 1850. I had that as part of my notes. Let's see. So that kind of led to the question we have here from Nestor. Can a natural event cause an EMP? So, severe thunder or maybe volcano. So I not that. Yeah, I'll let you answer.
No, I don't believe so. No. Now, granted, I'm not a PhD. But no, not that I'm aware of. However, things like lightning are significantly impacting a home. The EMP Shield does offer 100% guaranteed lightning protection. We say, literally 100% guaranteed. And even that's a bold claim. There's no other company in the world that's going to say at a $300 price point you can do that.
And I saw that you have like a $25,000. If it does not work, then there's
at 10 years, $25,000. We will, and if you take damage from the electrical system and the EMP Shield didn't work, we pay you. We'll fix whatever's broken. That's how certain we are about it.
So I think you've already answered some of these questions already, like before they're even asked. So will Faraday bags so you're saying that they're probably not needed for that.
And if you don't mind, Cliff, let's take that a step further. Other companies that sell Faraday bags, you're going to see like a 5,000 watt pull start generator inside of them. Absolutely ridiculous. Mechanically driven generators are not going to be damaged by an EMP. We use a general rule, 10,000 watts or below. Normally you don't need protected. It does depend on if it has electronic ignition system and different things inside the engine. However, most mechanically driven pull start engines are absolutely fine from an EMP. They're not going to be destroyed. So it's just another myth that a lot of people don't understand. So be wary when you're spending a lot of money on something that maybe is not needed, and just keep kind of these words in mind when you're looking. Look specifically at your device and say, wait, there's no microelectronics in here. It's a simple understanding in that if there's no microelectronics, it's not going to be destroyed.
Yeah. And I think you've already answered this one too. Why can't I just use silver foil?
You can.
You can. but you can't wrap your whole house in silver
That's
foil.
right.
Like that. Cool. I was one of the questions I had. We recently, again, we installed one of these EMP shields in our vehicle. I filmed it. I got to do all the editing of it this weekend. Hopefully I'll release it out. And it was so simple. It was like less than, we were filming, so it took longer because we're filming.
Very simple.
It was so simple. It was basically we just took a little sticker on the back, plugged it in, and wired it up and everything. The question I had, and you talked about it before, is when you're talking about it shunting to ground.
Yes.
You said that for a vehicle, then it's shunting to the chassis, which is ground, but then it's like almost like a circular thing.
That's right. Yeah.
The heat. I was hoping. That was the part I was hoping that you could talk a little bit more about.
Love to. It's one of the most common questions we get for the vehicle model. And so it's huge. People are like, well, your vehicle's on rubber tires. Where's the energy going? Let me explain. What we're doing is we're dissipating it over time. And of course, time is nanoseconds. So we're talking about short amounts of time. But so like the home model, we're shunting to ground. With the vehicle, we're pulling to chassis with the understanding that when we pull that electricity to the chassis, it's going to be reinduced back in the electrical system because everything's connected. Just not exact. It's not going to happen immediately. So every time we cycle that energy through the chassis, it's dissipating a portion of that charge. And so over a matter of nanoseconds, because of the speed of the ability to pull that energy, we're dissipating over those couple nanoseconds of time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And how many times is it really going through that kind of loop process?
It depends on the amount of energy induced. Okay. So we know how fast it pulls. We don't know how much is coming in. And we measure it when it hits the device, but we don't know it depends what weapon they're using. It depends on what type of event it is. But
Yeah.
Mhm.
So let's see. I'm going to keep going rapid fire questions. This is from
Love it.
Cascading
Yeah.
Preparedness. Let's see this one. Are there any reputable engineers who think that the product won't work? And how would you respond to so far? Again, I've seen all this data and specs and all sorts of stuff, and it's used by the. You guys started off making it for the military, and then it's available for consumers. Is that true?
Well, so actually no. So we are a government contractor. That's our primary focus in life. This is a civilian line of products that we just sell on the side.
Got it.
And first of all, there's like over 50 of the EMP Shield that you see online, but that's not our only product. We have a myriad of other technologies in the focus of EMP defense and type technologies. I'm actually not aware of any reputable engineer who, after we talked to them, was not, they're like, oh, that makes sense. I mean, as far as we know, anyways, in the government circles, we're absolutely involved in, and we're a part of the domestic electromagnetic spectrum operations out of Joint Base San Antonio. Yeah. We're on the team there, and that's doing grid protection right now. We're working, we're in discussions with Department of Energy to try to get our products tested at INL, which should be happening hopefully here in a few weeks. Basically, that means that once we get that stamp, we can work with. I got to be careful what I say, but work with the DOE on certain things. So
I don't want the government coming over here during the stream and breaking this up. But I know that a popular YouTuber for Atlas Survival Shelters, I know, is now integrating the EMP Shield and all of his survival bunkers.
That's correct.
Yeah, and most of us that are familiar with him have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, Ron's a good guy. Yeah,
he's a really, really good guy. Let's see. Some of these questions are the same here. Let's see. What's this one? How does the extra voltage drain from the system with the surge protector after an EMP?
I'm not sure I understand.
I'm
trying to. The extra voltage drain from the system. I think that's exactly the way we explained it. So
there
is no extra voltage because we drained it before. That's the idea.
I think that one's already. You're answering questions before they're asked. So one of the questions. See, I had another question here. Oh, geez. I have so many questions. I want to figure out. I want to have them in the right order.
Sure.
So the testing that you guys did was over at Keystone Compliance, and basically they have this laboratory that's because one of the problems I've had is like for most products that I test for YouTube, like a flashlight or something, I'm able to test the flashlight.
I know.
I'm not able to test the EMP because I don't have these fancy.
That's right. Yeah, and it's a huge issue because a lot of people are like, I can never prove this works. Well, you're never going to have the equipment to prove it unless you go to a testing lab, which is very, very, very hundreds of thousands of dollars. So Keystone Compliance is one of the few in the nation that's military certified. I mean, you're welcome to go right now their EMP testing website and it'll show you. They do Boeing's, Lockheed's, all those companies. We were there with Boeing at the time that we were there. And so what they do is they do pretty much any type. They can do almost any type of testing that you request. We did for 188-125-1, which is high altitude nuclear EMP testing. We did RS-105, which is the irradiation of the device attached to a system. 461 Golf, 464 Charlie. We did pretty much every military EMP testing standard that's publicly available. There's certain classified things that we didn't test on for that specific one, but.
Yeah, so I'm going through the website right now. I mean, I definitely don't have this equipment at my home for testing.
Right.
And from my understanding is that this particular lab that you did it was able to go up to 30,000 volts, and then you were like, take it up to the max, which was 90,000, and you did it like 30 times. And so that was something I didn't know before, is that basically this thing isn't like a fuse or something like that. It could withstand multiple EMPs.
That's correct. Yeah, because of the speed, we're not taking that energy for a long period of time. We're literally dumping it as soon as we see it, which makes it capable. And there's also we have redundant technologies built into it. So there's actually 3 technologies that provide a load shedding capability. So not only speed, but the ability to take multiple. It can take multiple things, and it can take large amounts for long periods of time because of the way that we designed the device and the technologies that we're using inside of it.
And other people were saying, well, these wires aren't thick enough to be able to handle that. And I think what you explained is that it's not like for a long period of time. We're talking very, very.
That's right. It's almost funny. I do marketing and sales. We're going to increase the size of the wires just because people don't. It's just a mental thing. They're like, we don't get it. The device is so fast, it really does not. It doesn't matter. We're not going to be holding a charge of that level for 5 minutes. We're doing it for 5 nanoseconds or even a couple microseconds. And for a lot of people who may ask, this is UL 1449 stamped. We went to the Edison testing level, former Edison testing lab. It's ETL to get UL 1449 standards on it, which is the golden standard. in the United States. A lot of people were like, "Whoa, if it's not UL, well, it is." They approved it as well. So yeah, basically that means it's lightning certified and safe to be used in the United States.
Cool. And that was another question that I had was with regard to lightning then. So these things, while they will withstand multiple EMPs, one lightning, and that's
right. Yeah, and we want to be.
How's the difference? Like, why is that?
Oh, lightning. First of all, the skin effect and the amount of energy coming from a lightning bolt is not. Lightning and EMP are not the same thing. Yeah. So with EMP, you're averaging anywhere from 50,000 volts per square meter. With lightning, you could be up to millions. I mean, it's huge. Lightning is huge. It's huge and fast. And so basically, what we're doing is we're pulling. With the EMP Shield, it's going to sacrifice its life. Nothing survives lightning. It's insane, but it does protect the house. And the way it does is it does the same technique with an EMP to where it's pulling immediately to ground to dump that initial energy, and then while it's doing that simultaneously, it's kicking the breaker. So we protect that amount that does get in, and then we stop the remainder of the amount of electricity before it can enter. And we do those two things simultaneously. So.
Yeah, I was thinking about Doc Brown from Back to the Future with the 1.21 gigawatts.
Gigawatts. Yeah.
what the hell is a gigawatt? Sorry. Let's see. Here's some random questions here. I think we've answered some of these already. Let's see. If I store my electrons in a tornado shelter, will that help protect my? So that was one of the things that with the Atlas Survival Shelter. We're talking about underground bunkers. Why would he need to have an EMP shield?
Yes. And I love, this is an amazing question. And it's very situationally dependent. If you look at Atlas, so first of all, he builds some of the best in the world. I mean, he's a world-renowned survival bunker. And so there's a couple things you have to consider. The first is it's a metal enclosure, but it's not completely, it depends. So sometimes there's cement, sometimes there's not. So when you're looking at a Faraday cage, you want 100%, 100% surrounds the object and does not allow any signal or anything to get into it. The difference is if the thing inside the device is touching the metal, then you have a contact and you have the ability to transfer electricity. Now in Atlas Survival's shelter, in his shelters, he's like, screw it, I'm not taking a chance. These are very expensive and we have the best clients in the world. We're going to put EMP Shield just in case, because the metal container may be touching wires. Easy. I mean, it's a $300 device for a $500,000 shelter. It makes sense, right? But let's say you just have a normal tornado shelter. Now it depends on the material that you're using. So the ground and water at a certain level will slow down and then eventually stop an EMP. However, at the depth of most shelters, it's going to provide almost no security from the energy going through the ground. And by the way, the ground does and water can cause a bouncing effect as well. So you don't see it anymore, but you used to see EMP cloths to cover your car. Absolutely ridiculous, because the energy is going to bounce off the ground and go straight into your vehicle. It doesn't make any sense. So be careful of people just trying to sell you things. But
cool. I had some questions of my own. I see some others coming in there as well. So here's one of the. If an EMP happened, would the US be able to prevent nuclear reactor meltdown? So I imagine there's some shield. They've already thought about this, but.
Okay, so what I can say is basically we've got the couple months ago an executive order just for EMP was signed by President Trump to go into law. Basically, that's just the pen stroke. Following that, you had the National Defense Authorization Act, which took that executive order and then put funding to it. So now you've got the key things. You got the funding and you've got the pen stroke together. So with that being said, there are things going in motion right now for the national grid.
Okay.
Of course, it's on the radar for the government. It's a huge threat to the United States. It would basically send us back to the Stone Age, and many people are aware of that. So there probably are, and I can't go into there are things built in right now, but
did I lose you? Did they shut us down? Okay. If you can hear me, Andrew, right now, I think they must have heard what we're talking about.
Are you there now?
We're back. I got
that
worried.
Was so weird, man. Like
I thought one, an EMP happened, or two, like they heard what we're talking about and they shut this live stream down. So I'm glad you're back. Here's another one I had for you. So what impact would an EMP have on satellites that are around? Because I know that these could go up to like 300 miles above the Earth. And I know the International Space Station is like 200 miles. So what would happen to all these things?
Yeah, so it depends where it comes from. If it's coming from the sun, there can be impact on satellites. However, that's very meticulously been covered through NASA and through the engineers, through SpaceX and the other companies that are working on these. Most of these are I would assume, I do know of some, but I don't know of all. I would assume most of them are 99 or 100% hardened from solar flares. But remember, in space, if you're talking nuclear, it takes ionization to create free electrons. So that's why we're looking from the Earth down. The blast, however, can impact the satellite, both physically and based on trajectory and stuff like that as well, the path that it's taking, and there can be things that impact the satellite. But it's not so much EMP, it's more or less a nuclear weapon going off in the atmosphere. So
yeah, for me, for EMPs, I've always, it's been lower priority for my emergency preparedness planning, because I want to make sure that I'm able to fix a flat tire and other more normal things. Oh, but one of the things for me that I was, how was I going to say this? So I guess I was less concerned about these EMPs that are the nuclear ones versus some rinky-dink person making a non-nuclear device. That's because I would imagine that if they really had something that was going up 300 miles, there would be all these countries with defense systems and stuff for this kind of thing. So what about, how would the EMP shield protect against something like a non-nuclear weapon? One of those modern weapons that aren't really nuclear?
Yes, and it can. It depends. This is one of those where it depends on the level of the weapon. So the first thing I can tell you is there are man-made EMP weapons. There's directional EMP weapons. One of our PhDs on our team used to work with DARPA on energy weapons, so we know quite a bit about them. It depends on the level of energy being directed and the induction rate and what it is. So up to 228,000 amps is protected. Again, when you're talking, we call them super EMP weapons. You're, instead of 50,000 volts per square meter, you could be looking over 100,000 volts per square meter. We know that we can protect against those. We did 90,000 volts, which was the per square meter, which was the max. But we're very, very confident against super EMPs. We can protect against them. However, for other applications we're doing, we go much, much, much higher and much, much, much faster. I won't go into too many specs, but I can say we're going to be in the picoseconds. Yeah, and levels are going to be 3 or 4 times higher than what we offer for certain models right now. So,
wow. So let's see, man, the time's flying by. I'd like to bring on Austin Chambers and the Apex Prepper on a little bit, and we'll, because so far, like I've seen from all the other videos, we can't stump you with any of these questions, and you're providing a lot of facts and data, which is good. So again, in the link, sir. I have a link to this in the description of this particular live stream. So if you guys are interested in the EMP Shield and checking out more, what I really like about your website is that it has all sorts of, like, it's not just the product, it's like all sorts of information too.
There's actually, that's intentional. And so one of the big things we have is called the EMP library. If you hover over the learn more, you can see it there. A lot of people don't know this, but Homeland Security's #1 EMP priority is actually awareness, because so many people are just unaware of, first of all, what an EMP is. A lot of people think EMP and 5G are the same thing. It's not. Yeah. So these are some of the most important documents on EMP that are publicly available. We're basically under the #1 rule, or the #1 effort of Homeland Security. We're trying to assist them by providing the information that people need to learn more. And so, we love education. We love awareness. It's not just about selling products. Like I said, we're a government contractor. These products that we sell on the website are only a very small portion of what we're, doing on the backside. So,
yeah, I think it's really cool, because we're all into emergency preparedness or prepping, and we like our gear, but not all the time. Someone could just use your website just as a resource landing page for all of these type of things, which is really, even without like the actual product itself, which I think is pretty awesome. So I like, I'm a software engineering, so I like facts and data and
yes.
to help drive decisions.
we want to make sure people understand we're a subject matter expert in the field. And there's many subject matter experts, don't get me wrong, but we want to be providing information to help people. It's the same with government organizations and large corporations. We advise on many different panels and many different government entities as well, intentionally, because it's not just about selling a product. It's about, hey, well, if our product doesn't fit, at least let us give you the information to make a better, more informed decision on protecting certain things. Yeah. So,
and I know some people were like, well, why should I protect my home if the whole grid's going down?
Yes.
That's like, that seems to be a common one. And
I'd love to answer it.
Yes. I see that in let's see, it's kind of related to this particular question, but yeah, can we talk about that a little bit?
I would love to. Okay. Yeah. And so it's a great, I had the same question when I started, helping to create this company too, but you have to understand, the first thing is the grid, although we believe it could be down for a very long time, depends on what level the government and corporations have done to protect it. The grid can come back up in 3 weeks. Now imagine you didn't have an EMP shield. The grid comes back up in 3 weeks. A lot of houses are destroyed and a lot of houses are back up and running because they had protection. So why not have that protection? So if we do take a small GMD from the sun, the grid's back up in 2 weeks, you're back up and running. That's the first reason. And a lot of people say, well, the grid's not going to come back up.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised what we're doing. It might come back up pretty quickly once we're done. Right now, not so much the case. In the future, there's billions and trillions of dollars being put into the grid. I can assure you very shortly it will be able to come back up. The next thing is, a lot of people like us, I don't like calling myself a prepper. I feel like the term is very derogatory, although I do think I fit into that realm of being prepared for certain things.
Yeah.
And so the next thing is, a lot of us have backup power systems. For me, I have redundant backup power systems. I rely primarily on solar for my house, and not primarily 100%. I'm 100% off grid. And then of course I have wind, and I have a generator for secondary and tertiary backup power systems. Now, if I didn't have EMP Shield, my house gets destroyed, right? And then I can't use my backup power systems. By the way, those systems will also get destroyed depending on what they are and the size of them and kind of how they function. And so for those people kind of like us who are like, we want backup systems, we want to be able to keep ourselves off the grid. Shoot, man, if your house is protected and you have a backup power system that's protected, you're up and running back like nothing happened. Now, granted, a lot of backup systems can't power as much. And so that's why I always advise people, when they're building their backup systems, to kind of focus on the priorities and the need. So like, keeping food storage lasting longer, just normal everyday, comfort kind of comes last unless it's a survivability type thing. But it makes complete sense to people like us. But for other people that ask the question, they're not quite putting 2 and 2 together yet, which is why I'm here trying to help put those connections together.
Yeah, unfortunately, like the shows like Doomsday Preppers really made prepping the whole term prepper like kind of we get made fun of it. Like
exactly. Like
my whole name's like on YouTube's the Urban Prepper, so I have to try to change this 1% at a time. And I think that's what you mentioned is an important. It's important because us as preppers, I also call you're into emergency preparedness, not a prepper, but we are into backups to the backups and having the generators and backup power sources. And so this EMP Shield is to protect your first line of defense, but you should also still have your generator. And do you have a Tesla wall or anything like that, or would it protect against the Tesla wall?
Yeah, in fact, we just had a customer 2 days ago that 2 customers actually that were working with they're called power walls.
Power walls.
And so we have several, not a lot. I mean, I'd say maybe close to 40 or 50 around the United States that have them that we're protecting.
And an EMP doesn't have, for what I was researching, it doesn't affect the solar panels itself. Then is that true?
Okay, so I love it. This is another myth. So it depends what it is. So now, if your solar panel does have microinverters, which is more for grid tied systems. So what that means is you have a panel and then a very small inverter underneath it. Yeah, we can protect those, but your cost is going to be so significant that it's almost not worth it unless you're like a multimillionaire. But they can be protected. But when you're talking about a solar panel, the photovoltaic coating, there's really nothing in a solar panel to be destroyed. However, they're huge antennas. A solar panel on average has about 5,000 feet of copper trace inside of them. Copper is a huge conductor of electricity and will induce significant amounts of electricity. So what we do on that system is we actually put the EMP Shield before the charge controller, which is the next major device after the PV array normally on off-grid systems. And so we're able to not only stop that huge bulk of electricity from coming into the system, but also if any's induced on the backside, we can pull it as well. So.
Okay. And what, going back to the previous question where we were talking about, well, why should we even bother with this? Like for me, like we installed the one on the vehicle, and for me, it's like, that's like a get home. Like we have get home bags in our vehicles. It's the whole point is me getting back home.
That's right. And that's actually our most popular model by far. I mean, I'd say half of our online sales on our civilian line of products are just the vehicle model. And it makes complete sense to me because imagine that you're 100 miles from home and an EMP occurs. Your life just changed because you can't get home, or if you have to go grab somebody or grab something important for the protection of yourself or your family. I mean, it's just invaluable to have that.
I thought we could do some rapid fire. We could bring in the other guest and then to do some rapid fire ones. This is from Rachel Rochelle. Do the civilian models still meet mil spec?
They do, absolutely, 100%. They're all tested above mil spec, not just 2 mil spec, almost double at certain cases and almost 4 or 5 times over in others. But they've all met mil spec. They've all met government specifications for Lightning UL 1449. So they're all tested, and the testing results are all publicly available. It's third-party independent testing. So
Got it. And then let's see, Mark Olson. We have my understanding is that after solar EMP event, the bottleneck is the replacement of damaged transformers.
Yes. That is a portion of the bottleneck. Substations, transformers. Of course, you've got to figure out how to black start nuclear power and gas power facilities, and then get them back up and running if they're not damaged. There's so many different variables associated to it, but you're absolutely right, Mark. The transformers are a significant portion of that.
And then we have can you prepare us 1.21 does it protect against 1.21 gigawatts?
I don't know. No. Oh, that's hilarious.
Okay.
Cue in the video of him. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That would be a pretty cool if it would look like the flux capacitor, I think, on the EMP Shield. Would be,
yeah.
This is from Charles. The Carrington event caught telegraph machines on fire. Would a large CME cause houses and buildings on fire from all of our electronics inside? I'd imagine.
Absolutely.
So. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, Cliff, sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, you're the
okay.
You're the man.
Yes, it depends on the size. If we're using a similar characteristics of the Carrington event, we already know it's going to happen because we saw those effects and we measured and we documented those effects. It all depends on the amount of energy that's induced into the conductor. But if you have a finite wire, it's going to get hot enough to where it might glow red and catch things on fire. We did see that in 1859. We saw telegraphs operating without battery packs or being plugged in. Just due to the induction of those electrons in the air. So we know it's absolutely possible and it's significant. Cool.
So oops, gotta press the right button here. Okay, there we go. So again, I'm looking at trying to figure out the questions in the chat room that we haven't already answered right now, but I thought we could bring in some special guests to see if they could help ask additional questions. This will be a lot of fun. Let's do it like cable news or CNN style. We're going to bring in the Apex Prepper, and we're going to bring in
brother
Chambers.
Hey, Austin.
Meet Andrew, the Andrew from EMP Shield. And I've been asking him all sorts of questions. I can't figure because I know that there's people there that are like, oh, this there's no way this could work. So far, I'm getting either the answers or I'm getting tech specs that show the answer. So, do you guys have any specific questions for Andrew?
Sure, I'll go. All right, so earlier you had mentioned about cell phones and laptops, how as long as they're not plugged in, then if an EMP or CME event hits, then they may shut down and then they'll come back on. But what about things like flashlights? And the other thing is there any special UL code that we can look for?
Yes.
Tell us that hey, this is going to be good or safe enough.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So looking at a product, is there a code that's going to say, hey, the EMI shielding level is this? First thing to start with is looking at what type of device it is. So like, for instance, your Baofangs. I'm sure that there is some form of EMI shielding in there. However, I don't know exactly what level, and nor have I ever zapped one, which I'd love to do in the future, especially because of the popularity of it. But yes, what I would do is I would start with it. There's no standard to it. So I'm not going to be able to say, look at this number and associate it to this level of shielding. But what you can do usually is start with the user's manual, and it's going to explain, it's going to say like FCC, and then underneath those, usually in the back of the book, it's going to explain what standards followed. But then you have to take those standards and you have to Google them or look them up, and then you can reference them. But for the most part, if there is a requirement for certain levels of protection, it has to be listed somewhere in the documentation. It's a requirement by law. So it's either going to be on device or on the documentation. Just kind of reverse order, look it up. Oh my gosh, what was the first question? Flashlight. It depends on what's inside of it. So we do know the primary culprit for being damaged through heat and the induction of electrons is called silicon arsenide. When you're looking at things like microprocessors, and there is sometimes chips inside of flashlights that allow them to do different modes and also allow the energy to be used more efficiently for certain brightness and lumens. So there is a likelihood that certain flashlights, especially some of the ones that people like us use where they're kind of more fancy, there is a likelihood that could get damaged. So I would actually start by looking at how it's designed and what's inside of it. You can usually pull off the cap and kind of look, but if it's got microelectronics inside of it, there's a chance, but there's a thing that you have to consider, and that is the footprint. And this is what most people don't understand is not every single thing induces 50,000 volts per square meter. It depends on the footprint. If it's something this size, the likelihood of the induction of certain levels of energy that could damage are very unlikely. Something this size, probably not. In fact, it just depends. And that's why when those flashlights are plugged into the wall, they're certainly in danger by themselves or autonomously. There's a very low chance they're going to induce enough electricity, not to mention the shell and how it's designed on the inside. So there's just certain things to consider, but I wish we don't have our own testing facility yet. We have some funding for it and we have the plans in place, but we cannot wait until we have our own EMP testing chamber, because we're just going to start zapping everything. It's the part of business is we want to be able to know what is damaged, how it's damaged, and how our devices need to be not only continue to be made, but also improved for further levels of protection. So
awesome.
Right on.
Yes, sir.
Austin, well, first off, Austin, do you have your EDC? Do you have anything special for us today?
Check right now.
I'm gonna EDC check you right now. So let me
All right.
hold on. Let me put on. Okay, there we go. EDC check time.
The tactical Apple candle.
Okay.
And then, of course, in my right pocket, I'm carrying an old Beanie Baby. So,
Good.
Morale is important.
the big one is
That's a
the
morale item.
snake.
Oh.
I have in my pants. This is Chambers Crocheted, a cat toy snake, and so it's always good to have an extra long snake in your pants. Hold that where you want.
Oh,
Okay,
you guys are cracking me up.
Yeah, I think that's a great. The EDC just keeps getting better and better. I like how you're always refining it, and which I think is important for emergency preparedness.
I still think that the S'mores kit or the MCT oil were probably the best, but
Yeah, those are good ones. So now that we got that figured out what's in your EDC, do you have any specific questions for Andrew with regard to electromagnetic pulses?
to start with, I have some others that aren't related to that, but the first two-parter is, do you have any reputable engineer type skeptics, and how do you respond to their criticisms?
Yes, we have a lot of people that start as skeptics. I don't know very few engineers that were skeptics. In fact, I don't have a by name of anybody who, after we talked to myself and Tim, and then we gave some NDAs and gave some documentation that we don't normally give, I don't think we've had a single person that's like, I still don't believe you, because there's nothing to disbelieve. It's proven, and it's not proven in a theory. It's proven in real life. And that brings up a good question that a lot of people have is, well, you have to have a nuclear weapon to test an EMP. That's absolutely incorrect. We can recreate EMPs, and we do it on a daily basis in the United States. It's very common. So,
All right. I'll let Bernie go again. I do have a couple more lined up.
excellent. Yes, sir.
Okay, so one of the questions that people ask me all the time, I think I know the answer to it, but you're the professional, so I'm going to ask you on behalf of a lot of people.
Yeah.
Is a safe good enough for an EMP protection?
Yes. It depends on what the safe's made of. If you've got a cardboard safe, probably not. But usually a safe's made of very thick, solid metal. It's pretty much in sense a Faraday cage. You're going to have a little gap where the safe connects, and there's a likelihood that there's a small amount of energy that can get through there and frequency that can get through there. But it's for the most part, you're pretty much 99.9% protected with things inside of a safe, which is an amazing question, because a lot of people say they need to make a Faraday cage, and I'm like, you got a gun safe. Don't waste the money. Save the money on something else. Put those electronics inside of there. Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm kind of curious a little bit more, Andrew, about you. You mentioned you don't like the word prepper. I can understand that, as other people don't. But yeah, I'm hearing cool things as far as we already know that you have EMP protection. I'm sure throughout the home. You mentioned how you have solar. You even have, I think, wind, or did you say wind and generators?
I did.
What are some other kind of emergency preparedness measures that you have in place? I'm kind of curious on what you have set up.
Location. Yeah.
Location.
So first of all, Cliff, I love your channel. I've been watching you for a very long time. And other channels like you, because you're offering solid information. But the big thing that people don't, I have and completely off grid. People say bug out location. I have another place. So right now I'm in my apartment in Burlington, Kansas, but I do have another place that's 100% off grid. My bug out location. And I actually built that out of a Conex container because I had them readily available. I didn't want to waste the money. Of course, then I went inside and I did, I built the interior just like you would a house, but the shell of it itself is a Conex container. And I did it just because I always wanted to, and I thought it'd be fun, but it does serve as a little bit of protection. So the biggest thing when I'm talking about being prepared or preparedness and stuff like that is redundant power systems. Number one thing, having protection on the power system. Lightning protection is important too, because the lightning strike can take out your off grid or your primary survival location. But then when you're talking about that location, the physical location of where you're at is so critically important. And this is just I'm not a prepper expert, but this is just my opinion, but like having a water source, the distance from you from a major city location is incredibly important. The ability to access, but not directly access through, you guys are aware that animals travel the path of least resistance. So having a location where that can't naturally happen, or more or less likely to naturally happen, is critically important to me. So that's a little bit about, you know, where I choose to put my cabin. So
that's on all these. Let me see if I can pull this up really quick. On all these things with regard to EMPs, though, you mentioned that your bug out location is in Kansas, but they always say that they would have the EMP go right above Kansas. Like, is there a reason for that?
Well, so this is another myth, and this is important to know. So okay, so the height of the EMP determines the range of the EMP. You see the circles and stuff like that. So we always use 300 miles because we know at 300 miles it'll encompass the entire United States, portions of Canada, portions of Mexico, very large portions, depending on the height. However, when you're looking at an EMP from that distance, the amount of energy put out from it and the induction rates across the United States, although are going to differ, they're not going to be significantly different. So being in Kansas with it directly above me doesn't make me that much more in danger than it would be if I was in California like you. So it just depends, kind of. You have to understand it, and there is a difference, but it's not significant.
Okay, cool. I thought maybe EMP Shield had you stationed out there to specifically.
Oh, no. So like I said, I did 15 years in the military. My dad was a military guy, retired out of here in Wichita, Kansas. And so after the military to come start EMP Shield, a lot of them were from Kansas. I said, hey, I'll go back to Kansas. I love it here. The cost of living is great. It's for survival purposes, it's good. It's a great place to have a company with distribution because it's in the middle of the United States, faster shipping. And
you mentioned how you have a generator. Is it like a propane generator, or what kind of?
So right now I have a dual fuel. It's a Champion. It goes up to 9,500 watts, but it can use propane or gas. I only run it like every few weeks just to make sure it's still running. But it's a backup system for my cabin.
Okay, cool. So, and let's see. This is from James McCool. This is the most informative live chat I have seen. I would smash the like button multiple times if I could. So, yeah, people, if you like hearing what all about EMP and EMP Shield and Andrew and all the guests that we have, make sure that you smash the like button.
Smash
it.
Just smash it.
Yeah, just smash it, and we'll nuke it almost. And guys, I've provided a link in the description box to the EMP Shield. We have Andrew here, I think, for a couple more minutes, but you could get these for your home circuit breaker. I think that's the primary one. Also, your vehicle to help you get back home if something bad were to happen like that. And in addition to if you have an Energy Apex or something like that for those kind of generators, in addition to generator, what are some of the other things that you guys that you can put it on?
Oh my gosh, pretty much any application. In fact, there's some things I can't really exactly say yet, but you guys will see in the future. We are teaming with some solar companies. And we're talking like official teaming up where they will sell these products on their website with our name and theirs combined. But yeah, there's an Apex, there's the Kodiak, there's the new Flex. Energy is my favorite solar company by far because of the innovations that they're working with in technology. And a lot of people don't know this, but we were the Kansas Emerging Business of the Year for 2020. Energy Solar was it Utah? The Utah Business of the Year for 2020. So we were both in that same category where we kind of met each other. But Energy Solar is a great company. Same with Goal Zero, amazing company. Yeah. They're doing good things. And I think there's a question there. Sorry.
Apex, he raised his hand. That was very polite of you.
Didn't want to interrupt. Hey, so with EMP Shield, I have a couple quick questions regarding the product. One, does it need to be installed by a professional electrician?
Yes, for the home it is, and there's two reasons. Number one, we do not want somebody who thinks they can do it go out there and kill themselves. You're dealing with electricity, especially 120, 240, can be very dangerous, if not deadly. The second reason is for warranty purposes. And like I said, a very unintentional effect of the EMP Shield is 100% lightning protection. And we want people to have that. We want the warranty in place so that when they get hit, if for some reason we don't do our job, we cover it. And so we do ask that to follow the warranty, you have a professional certified electrician do it. However, for the vehicle model, it's not quite the case. 3 to 5 minutes in a wrench. It's just like changing a battery. It's very simple. We've made it very simple so the average person can do it. So it does depend on the application.
Okay. And then do you know if the product itself will help with like insurance, like home insurance benefits or?
Great question. So I do know that certain companies do offer it and certain companies don't. It's not a standard across insurance companies that we're actually working on the policy making side to try to make a new standard across the United States, not just for us, but for surge protection in general. And surge protection is slowly becoming a requirement for new home builds across the United States. And I think it's kind of starting here in the middle and expanding out. But what I'd recommend for the customer that has this, and there's thousands of you out there, just call your insurance company and ask. We do know that a lot of the people, and we deal with some large rental companies that have thousands of rental units, and they have thousands of EMP shields. They do get decreased rates on those. And we do have some homeowners who have said, we got it, and others that said, this is BS, we didn't get it. And I don't understand why some do and some don't. I'm just trying to make it more positive for everybody, but yeah.
That was a really good question. I like that one.
Yeah, it's an awesome question.
I mean, because you could put security cameras on your home, and I think it lowers it. Why not have, if you have an EMP shield, or even if they don't even know what an EMP shield is, just having some kind of surge protection seems like
right. And I believe it's normally tied to the UL certification that we have, and other devices that have that UL certification also fall into that category for reduction.
So I have a couple questions here. So it seems like this is from Dina. Interesting that you're in Kansas. My family was from there. So we have some Kansas fans watching right now. This was one I wanted to get to. This is from Mr. Hand. It's beyond depressing. Is there really any hope for us? Andrew, is there any hope for us?
From an EMP and GMD, CME perspective, absolutely there is. Like I said, there's billions, if not trillions of dollars that just got allocated to EMP protection across the country. So there's hope in that sense. If you live in Kansas and if you're asking if there's hope, that's completely up to you mentally.
Yeah.
So
okay. Let's see. People seem to they seem to be enjoying the live stream. Fantastic, well organized. So So again, thanks Andrew for being here. I think we have like maybe 4 minutes. I'm trying to keep the live streams a little shorter, just so I don't want it to be like Lord of the Rings length for. So let's see. This is from Mark. Remember, this is the search function over voltage. Let's see what I've already mentioned about the link. It's in the description box. I have a coupon code too, so I think you get $50 off if you use Urban50. So that's $50 off of that. So yeah, again, I'm going to be doing I'm going to be coming out with the video for the vehicle one because it was so simple to do, and it gives me a little bit of peace of mind. I think we're going to add one to our second vehicle again, I know that if an EMP happened, that the gas stations I think would be affected and water pumps and all that kind of stuff. But it at least allow me to get home to. Sure. That's the most important thing. So, but I'm also working on the one we're going to be doing the one for we have an electrician coming install for the house, and then I also have one for the energy. But I think I might have the wrong model, so I have to talk with you guys. So
yeah, let us know. It's fine.
Let's see. Is there any other questions here, Austin? Or I saw you raising your hand there. Yes.
So. First of all, before my question, I want to tell Bernie, God bless you, young man, for thinking you're going to file an insurance claim after the country suffered an EMP attack.
Exactly. It's a solid point, and that's actually come up quite a bit.
But now my question, there's a couple. One is there's a well-renowned author, Bradley, doctor. He's got a YouTube channel and stuff, and he sells this really expensive cloth that people can drape over their car. Or put a smaller piece over their generator or whatever. Are you guys looking at expanding into other types of things?
Nope, absolutely not. Our only focus, our purpose in life is EMP defense technologies that are focused on this type of technology and this concept. I kind of dispelled the whole cloth thing. EMP is going to bounce off the ground. Now, granted, it is going to provide some protection from the direct electrons coming down into it, but if it's sitting on the ground, it's going to bounce up and it's still going to induce.
Okay.
And nothing against Bradley, and it's a great concept. It does provide some protection, just not 100% protection.
Well, my last question is: does it protect leg lamps?
That's a Christmas Story leg lamp. One of the
it depends on what's inside of it. It may not need protection.
Bernie's got my books.
That's awesome. Let's see. This is from MacGyver. You have the EMP trilogy. Here's one really quick before heading out. So does your unit work on 240 volt in Euro?
Yes, we do have a European model, and I heard books in there. So for those of you who don't know, we actually work with James Wesley Rawls. We work with Glenn Tate. We're actually a supporter, one of his largest, not investor, supporter on a website called Patreon. I'm sure most people have heard of it, but we donate money to James to Glenn Tate on a monthly basis just because the dude's awesome, and his books are amazing. But we are associated with a lot of authors as well. Yeah.
So how about
neighbor? So
oh wow,
from Washington. Yeah, I heard you about 5 or 6 months ago on his podcast. So.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Glenn's an amazing guy.
Yeah, I've seen you on all sorts of podcasts and videos, and you're always super positive on this depressing topic, and so it's been really nice. A lot of us preppers get down and dark and everything, so it's really refreshing to have someone that's so positive. It makes me excited about EMP protection.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and I'm not trying to make EMP protection exciting. I also don't want to scare anybody. I just want to make sure people understand the facts.
Well, I think that's important because so much about when you talk about preparedness and prepping and stuff like that, immediately people they think about doomsday preppers. They think about the scary stuff, and it's really discouraging that we're having people not be prepared because they're scared off by stuff. So I think the way that you're doing it is awesome.
Yeah. Well, we found other ways around it too. So a lot of people don't know this, but we're teaming up with electrical companies, and so our device for the home is a Type 2 device. Pretty soon, your electrical company is going to be offering you lightning protection. It's actually an EMP shield on your meter. So a lot of people are going to eventually be having this and not even know they have it, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I think again, this has been awesome talking with Andrew. I provided links in the description box. So check, go to EMPshield.com or .net or both of them. I think you have. Even if you don't want to get the product, go there because you could learn a whole bunch about EMPs. And then once you do, then they have the products available, and it's let me see if I get it up here. And you can get it for basically anything that's electronic. I would recommend probably starting off with the home one. I think that's probably the most popular one. In addition to the vehicle, it seems like it just makes sense. And especially if you have a nice vehicle, you want to protect it. And if you have a nice home, you want to protect that too. Man, there's some still great questions coming in, but I can't get.
Question you should have him answer that. Rochelle Moore's question.
Yeah, that was awesome. How would an EMP affect a pacemaker?
Yep, love it. It happens. This is so older pacemakers were not EMI shielded, just like your cell phone and your modern day computer. Newer pacemakers have EMI requirements inside of them for protection. You're fine. If you have a pacemaker that's new, last 4 years, you're going to be okay. If you have an older pacemaker, probably want to go see your doctor if it's a concern of yours.
Well, yeah, 'cause I remember the movie. I don't know if you've seen The Core, where they had the center of the core stopped rotating, and so it messed up the whole electric. And so everyone with pacemakers died at this one particular time, and so they didn't have proper shielding. But within the last 4 years, then
Does that apply to all medical implants?
No, and it's all on a situational device specific basis. But what we do know is because we get this question happens hundreds of times a month for us. There's so many customers that are out there like, holy crap, I just thought about this, but my dad has a pacemaker. It happens all the time. So we specifically looked into pacemakers, at least just to give peace of mind for a lot of people. And if not, to help people that do need a newer model start looking for one. So.
Cool. Well, I think we're at the end of time. I really appreciate you spending all the time and answering all these rapid fire questions.
It's fun. Yeah, I love it.
No, this has been a blast. So again, everyone, make sure you check out EMP Shield. I provided information. Stay tuned I have a video coming out featuring this. And now I've got a lot of the questions that I had answered. So, and I really appreciate that you leverage facts and data and research and scientific stuff and stuff from the government and everything. So it's like really it provides a lot more credibility. So, again, and then special thanks to Austin and for the Apex Prepper joining on too. I liked having our little the Brady Bunch looking squares and stuff. So that was good. But good, cool. Well, Andrew, thanks again, and I hope everyone enjoyed watching this live stream. Make sure you smash the like button and go from there. And feel free to leave comments afterwards. We'll try to answer those later. So,
all right, guys.
Yeah, I like the thumbs down.
Hey, Bernie.
High fives. Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. Thanks for watching this live stream, and we'll see you next time. Take care.